back, I was at work, at Trooth's Manga Cafe, and I was talking with one of my coworkers about some of the frustrating tropes in manga, especially the rom-coms written by dudes and aimed at male readers. I said something about how every time 3 or more female characters are alone, they talk about two things: the boys they maybe have crushes on, and the size of their boobs. I've seen it happen in Komi, I've seen it happen in Ayumu, and now it's even leaked into my favorite, Nagatoro. My coworker then says, and let me guess, these characters are high schoolers too, right? I just said, well... And she said, why do you even read these series? And I guess that's what I'm here to try and answer today. I've been trying since late 2023 to write this review in a way that's both genuine and not 120% concentrated depression. This is my third draft, which is hopefully going to sound less like a suicide note than the other two unpublished versions. They contained lines such as, I'm going to try to be intoxicated at every phase of this creation process, and no one has ever been happy to learn that I love them. We're gonna try to move away from that. So, I'll tell you in the most detached terms I know, how I got started reading Nagatoro. A few years back, when there were only about a dozen or so volumes of Komi, I struck up a conversation with a random patron of the Manga Cafe. I told him I've been keeping up with Komi, and it's pretty funny and overall nice to read. This stranger asked me if I'd read any of Nagatoro, which I hadn't. He said, I liked Komi pretty well, but the thing I like better about Nagatoro is that the characters' relationship actually goes somewhere. Well, that was intriguing enough to me to put Nagatoro on my eventual reading list. To give you some frame of reference, it takes 23 volumes of Komi before the main characters, who are obviously going to start dating. Nagatoro finished recently, and does not even total 23 volumes. On the surface, there's honestly a lot of similarity between Komi and Nagatoro. They both fall into what I'd describe as dream girl manga, or to put it a funnier way, the genre of bait for lonely dudes who get no bitches and stack no paper. The main difference is that Komi has a premise of, what if you got to date your perfect introverted dream girl? And Nagatoro has a premise of, what if you got to date your perfect extroverted dream girl? They're both about a totally bland male main character with just enough basic decent qualities that any lonely dude reading the manga can project himself into the story and go, yeah, this is totally what would happen if women would only give me a chance. The other difference, since it's kind of an elephant in the room, is that Nagatoro is a hornier manga. Which is unfortunate, but I'll address in a little while why that hasn't made me drop it. In my defense, I really don't think the first 5 cover illustrations, which I believe was all we'd gotten up to that point in the US, really indicate an overwhelming horniness to the plot. If anything, I would say mildly suggestive. And it's not like they're shrink-wrapped or anything. To keep things a little more surface level for now, I like that Nagatoro tries to be a little more than just a dream girl for the bland audience surrogate MC. It's nice that Nagatoro herself is not just an outlet for some dude's feelings, but actually has some degree of agency and drive in her own life. She helps out the swim team at her school, and she wants to excel in judo specifically. This is something that matters to her personally, and at times it seems like this drive might even eclipse her wishes for romance. Compare that to Komi. What does Komi want out of life? She wants to make 100 friends, but what does she want her life to become? What is Komi without her friends? What is Komi without Tadano's love and support? It comes across to me like, if she was somehow left without her relationship and friends, She would crumple up and blow away at the slightest breeze like a pile of dead leaves. I much prefer a character who actually wants things for her own self-actualization, and I guess I generally respect people like that as well. So, some time passed. I'm not sure I ever saw that random patron again, and one day I finally decided to give Nagatoro a chance. I think I had just wrapped up reading something really heavy like Flowers of Evil, and I was browsing the aisles for my next read. I decided I really want to read something that isn't heavy at all, just a low-stakes, lighthearted comedy manga, maybe with a cutesy romance plot. Enter Nagatoro. At first I was loving the series because I really did get out of it exactly what I had hoped for. I thought the characters' relationship seemed really natural and genuine in the way it progressed, and I liked a lot of the humor. It has a sense of humor that I really like, where a lot of it is informed from the familiarity you've gained with the characters, where a scene will be funny before you even get to the punchline because based on the setup you already know how a character is going to respond. I can't help drawing more comparisons to Komi, since that's the context that brought me into this series. But unlike Komi, there's a much narrower character focus. Komi's main arc of trying to make 100 friends necessitates a massive cast of characters, and as a result, plenty of them pop into the story, stick around for a chapter or two, and then are gone forever as suddenly as they're introduced. I appreciated that Nagatoro keeps the focus primarily on the two main characters, and only features maybe a dozen named characters in the whole rest of the series. One of my favorite side characters is Yoshi, mostly because her main personality trait is that she loves dogs. You even see her early on walking a dog and wearing a shirt that says "I heart dog" on it. Later on she has a shirt that is clearly supposed to be just an image of the Doge meme. I like the way Nagatoro slowly becomes more protective of the main guy, and even though she starts out basically bullying him, you see how the two of them are genuinely positive influences on each other, romantic context notwithstanding. Now, let me get back to the elephant in the room. The author of this manga has a history of drawing some unforgivably disgusting hentai before Nagatoro. I feel like just by viewing these manga's pages on my anime list, I'm now logged on my government watch list as well. So there's a strong chance Nagatoro was initially conceived as a kind of bullying fetish story, or that it might have just devolved into porn for dudes who want a mean girl to dominate them if the manga hadn't achieved the moderate success that it did. And hey, if those are your specific fetishes and all parties involved are consenting adults, then more power to you. What starts to make Nagatoro uncomfortable to read is that it's essentially about a high school girl flirting with a high school dude, and the flirting gets progressively lewder and more suggestive, and all the while she's no older than 16 or 17. No, Nanashi, I do not want to see the high school girls showering and bathing. No, dog, I do not need 2 fucking volume covers where Nagatoro is wearing nothing but a towel. Nagatoro enjoyers like myself get plenty of shit for this kind of story material on the internet, and I'm not delusional enough to think there's nothing creepy about it. All I'll say is that I don't think it's anything particularly out of the ordinary for manga or anime. Such a majority of stories seem to be about high school characters, and I'm sure we've all heard the tired old justifications of shit like, Japan has a different age of consent, bro, it's okay. Or, wow, you clearly don't understand the cultural differences of other parts of the world, bro, that's pretty closed-minded of you. And I'll just say, I don't think these excuses validate the content of the work. They just aid me in the mental gymnastics I need to tolerate getting through a story like this. But speaking of mental gymnastics, here's how I read and enjoy Nagatoro and still sleep at night. I don't go into a rom-com story like this as a 30-year-old man and think, golly, these high schoolers are hot. If only I could meet a high school girl like this. Instead, it's more like, let me use Evangelion as an example. Eva fans love to debate which girl is best. Do you like a thoughtful, reserved, quiet girl like Rei, or do you like a fiery, aggressive, strong-willed girl like Asuka? Some people bring to that argument, obviously Misato is the only choice, because if you like either of the other two, you're a pedophile. First of all, so is she. Second, the question, as I see it, is not, which girl do you, an embarrassing, stinky dude in his 30s, most want to get with right now? To me, the question is, if you were Shinji, which girl would you want to be with? When you have the shots in Eva of things like staring down the barrel of Asuka's shirt, the point, I hope, is not for you, the adult watching this, to get excited by the sight. The point is that you're seeing what Shinji sees, and to have you think something like, boy, if I were a 14-year-old kid seeing that, that would really be doing something for me. There's a whole lot of questionable, weird sexuality throughout Eva, and I would argue even more explicit than Nagatoro, but I think Eva gets a pass because so much of the series is about immersing you in Shinji's psyche, and presenting the world as he sees it. Basically, that's the same way I approach Nagatoro. I'm not reading it because she's a type of character I find really hot. She isn't. I mean, I am Team Asuka, but my point is that when I'm reading this series, I'm thinking about it from the male lead's perspective, and going back to that idea of, if I was a 17-year-old kid, I'd be losing my mind at this situation. And that's where the humor comes from, to me. Now, that said, I would be a lot happier if there were no scenes of all the high schoolers nude in the hot springs. And I would be a lot happier if the volume covers in the mid-teens were 100% less horny. But I guess old Nanashi can't help but pander to the creeps. He may even be a creep himself, I don't know the guy. But I guess I know his past works, and they look to me like they are right up there with Made in Abyss in terms of fans of this should get honorary placement on the sex offender registry, assuming they aren't already on it. This is going to sound like lofty praise, but Nagatoro has changed my perception of how I evaluate any kind of media I consume. When I was in late high school and early college, I went through kind of a film bro phase. I made a serious endeavor to watch all of the top 250 rated movies on IMDb, and for a span of a few months I actually maintained a 100% watch rate on those. Right now I'm sitting at about 230-ish. I tried to watch them all because I had this idea of the majority of people agree that these are all the best movies ever made. Anyone who doesn't like these is either a willful contrarian or they are too stupid to see the quality in these great films. And by the way, you must say film if it's good and dignified. Movies are for children. Film bro culture sucks because there's this pervasive idea that a movie or any other piece of art can be objectively better than another. Lots of people follow this line of thinking, even if they never consciously think it nor admit it to themselves. I made it kind of a habit to rate any movie I saw similarly to the mean, whether I really truly agreed with its reputation or not. I told an internet review aggregate site that Once Upon a Time in America was my second favorite movie of all time, out of over 1,800 movies. But I never want to watch it again because it's an exhausting 4-hour-long drama that I know will not be a fun or enriching experience if I watch it again. Then I turned around and said that Kung Pao Enter the Fist is in my bottom 10% of movies, when in reality it's one of my favorite and most rewatched movies of all time. That's how deeply my brain was poisoned by film bro culture. I apologize for college-age Trooth. We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke. I will immediately know a person is insufferable to discuss movies with if I ask them whether or not they like a movie and they respond with, "It's fun." Or worse, "It might not be good, but it is fun, I suppose." Fuck that. If you have honest fun watching a movie, that's good. Having fun is a good thing. Not everything has to convey some deep philosophical message that you can live your entire life by. Sometimes 90 minutes of gut-busting laughter is more valuable to you than 3 hours of "turns out war bad, actually." And if someone made you pee your pants laughing, odds are they put some honest artistic creative work to do that, and that's worth praising. Point being, I feel no sense of community among stuffy assholes who live in pursuit of true cinema. The best way to interact with other people's creative work is to find something that truly and deeply resonates with you specifically. My new favorite movie is Agnes Varda's Vagabond. I watched it a couple of years ago when I was sick with COVID, and it shifted my whole perspective on life. It got me thinking about the idea of value as it pertains to people's lives. It made me think, what value does a person provide when they have no job, no money, and no possessions? What kinds of people see value in a person like that? What kinds of people see that person as worthless? And while we're at it, what value do I, Truth, actually give to the people around me? Do I, as a person, have value? That movie was the most important thing that I specifically could have seen at that exact moment in my life. In past times of my life, other movies were the most important. I saw Pan's Labyrinth when I was about 18 years old, and that was the most important movie I could have seen at that time. It was everything I needed to see, having to do with growing up into a harsh world, trying to maintain a sense of wonder and optimism, and being forced to either give up your childhood whimsy and grow up, or die. That time, I chose to grow up. I no longer give a shit what any kind of prestigious movie critic thinks about any movie ever. People loved to point to Roger Ebert and his partners as this reliable indicator of a movie's quality. But those critics now have careers with plenty of dog shit takes on movies that have more than stood the test of time. I do not feel any need to base my movie opinions on a guy who loves both of the mid-2000s live-action Garfield movies, and expresses that love by writing reviews in which he earnestly role-plays as the character Garfield. I'm glad he loved Garfield so much. I am just not on that wavelength. Sorry. No shade to the Garfield fans out there. Listen, I used to own like 30 of the Garfield compilation books. I am just not into it anymore. Nagatoro is a 10 out of 10 series for me. I'm not stupid enough to believe that everyone should agree with me. Nor am I naive enough to believe my love for this series is valuable enough that it should convince other people to read or watch. I don't even believe that it's a flawless series. Personally, I wish Volume 16 didn't have a cover where she's wearing unbuttoned short shorts, making me embarrassed to read the shit in public. I know some people would say that if a work of art has any flaws whatsoever, then it's impossible to call it a 10 out of 10. But it's a 10 out of 10 series for me because it's one of an incredibly few things capable of reaching the core of my heart. There's hardly another thing on Earth that can make me feel like I'm reliving some of my life's happiest memories. That's the kind of thing that only really comes to me in dreams anymore. Unfortunately, as it turns out, nightmares are much better to have, and happy dreams are the true nightmares. When you have a nightmare, you wake up and get to feel that great relief in the return to reality, and rejoice in the fact that none of those horrible events actually happened to you. When you have a dream about a happy memory, or that something you've always wished for finally came true, the real world is a miserable place to wake up to. I'd like to walk you through the dream that is me reading Nagatoro, but right now I need to set that aside and write a letter. Dear, I'm writing you tonight because I miss you. I last wrote to you in October of 2023. I last spoke to you in 2021. I last saw you in 2019. Today I want to talk to you about what I've been reading lately. I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I hope you're still watching. I started reading this manga a little while back, and if you'd told me a few years ago that this would be a favorite of mine, I'd never have believed it. And in fact, it never would have become a favorite of mine if it hadn't been for you. Now I know what you're thinking. I have never in my life recommended a manga to you, so how dare you? And that's true. In some ways, the main girl reminds me of you, but it might be more accurate to say that it felt like this story was ripped straight from the pages of my life. Did I ever send you that screenshot of the girl on Twitter asking, "Quiet, laid-back men, why do you go for loud, fiery women?" And a guy responds, "Someone gotta tell the waiter I ordered mashed potatoes and it ain't gonna be me." I seem to remember that exact scenario happened one of the last times we went out to eat at Anyway, this manga is basically that exact dynamic. Main difference, I guess, is that the main dude, who I'll call Senpai, he doesn't even have a name revealed in the manga for the longest time, doesn't really go for the main girl, Nagatoro. More like she bullies and teases her way into his life until he can't imagine any other life. But I swear it's actually sweeter and funnier than that. See, this is yet another way I feel exactly like Senpai from the manga. In the first volume, Nagatoro finds this kind of pervy manga that he's reading, and he starts throwing out all these justifications for it, like, I actually just read it for the humor, or the story and art style are just really good, the lewd stuff doesn't matter. Except I'm being serious, I don't know about him. There's another chapter in Volume 1 that reminds me of the kind of dynamic we had cultivated later on. Senpai is spying on Nagatoro, who unknowingly came out to the same fast food place as him, and she's hanging out with a few friends, one of whom is a dude who keeps trying to hit on her. Senpai expects her to start mocking and laughing at the guy like she always does with him, but instead she just kinda coldly shuts him down in a really serious way. You remember the hookah bar we went to a few times? I'm reminded of that one time we went there, just the two of us, and we ran into a guy you know. No big surprise, because I still believe you know every single person living in. We sat down next to his friend group with me on the farthest point outside, as usual, and you chatted with their group for a minute. After that, you got the sense that I was feeling left out. You turned to ask me if I was feeling left out. I said yes. So you turned away from their group and we started talking again like we had been. I was really happy with you at that moment because I feel like if the same thing had happened a few months prior, you would have just kept talking with their group and leaving me completely ignored. But then, the guy we sat down next to starts trying to get your attention again after a few minutes. I was sitting right there, so I could hear him asking you, "How come you're not talking to me more? You sat down next to me, so you must have wanted to talk to me, right?" I had neutral feelings about the guy before that moment, but that was the turning point that made me lose any respect for him. The fact that he would sit there and try to openly turn this occasion into a competition for your attention. But again, I was really happy with you because you immediately shut him down saying, "I didn't come here with you." I know I've never been the strongest guy, but I've always wished to be at least strong enough that I don't need to ask for help. But that said, I'm not sure I appreciate anything more than when someone goes to bat for me, refusing to let others disrespect me. The thing I like about this manga is both of the main characters seem to make each other better people over time. I'd like to think it was the same way with you and me. I can say with absolute certainty that knowing you changed my life irreversibly for the better, and boy, I really hope you can say the same thing about me. But if not, I get it. But like, take for example this early chapter where Senpai is jealous of this star athlete at their school, and he bitterly comments about how other people are always praising and complimenting that guy, but never him. Nagatoro brings up a totally valid point of, well, how often are you praising other people? It turns into yet another cutesy moment where he tries to compliment her in a way that's not too provocative, and when it's her turn to compliment him, she pretends it's a huge struggle. You always loved to pull up these best friend quizzes on your phone, and we'd ask each other these questions about each other, and I'll never forget when you read out, "What do you like most about your best friend?" Then looked me up and down and said, "Next question." One of the first moments you see these characters' relationship making a turning point is in Volume 2 when Nagatoro starts instinctively protecting Senpai from her friends. She's sitting at the lunch table, poking and prodding and teasing him, and when the other girls try to join in, she just shuts them down hard and then tries to play it off as a joke. I never felt like you teased me a whole lot, but once in a while you did stick up for me like that. I remember another time when you and I had gone out to eat, and as usual, we ran into another friend group of yours. You got so excited, got up from our table to greet them, and came back to ask me if they could join us. At the time, I really wanted to just spend time with you one-on-one, but when I saw how excited you got about seeing these friends, it was impossible to say no to you. Eventually, we drove back to the house of one of these people, and on the way you asked me once again if I'm really comfortable spending time with all these people I don't know. And now that we were alone, I felt like it was okay to tell you, basically, the conclusion of the last paragraph. So you promised we could split off from them after a little while and still get some one-on-one time. The group was naturally not that interested in me. A smoke circle started at their house, and maybe you noticed as well as I did that I got skipped more often than not. One of the house guests finally acknowledged me by saying, "How you feeling, guy?" And you snapped back, "He has a name, you know." Do you remember writing notes in a notebook in my room that one time? We were hanging out in there one night, and when I was out of the room, you picked up a notebook lying on my desk. As it happens, I was just using this notebook to take notes on a puzzle game I'd been playing recently, but you picked it up and added to my objective list, Step 4, get a girlfriend. I noticed it almost right away, and I said something like, "What if that had been my secret diary where all my most private thoughts were written?" And you said, "Well, then I'd love to read it because maybe then I'd know your true feelings about me." I don't remember what I said at the time. Anyway, that reminded me of the chapter where Nagatoro steals a notebook from Senpai, but it contained sketches of her that he had secretly made. One time, when we were killing time and shopping at a Goodwill store, I sat down in one of the chairs they had for sale, saying, "This chair is actually pretty nice." Then, without warning, you plopped down in the chair right on top of me, then wiggled around and said, "I don't know, feels kinda lumpy to me." In Volume 3, Nagatoro offers to give Senpai a haircut. He thinks this is yet another kind of teasy prank, and like she's gonna shave him bald or give him a weird hairstyle. In the end, it's just kind of a nice, calm moment that they share. Which reminds me, to this day I will never fully understand why you thought it would be a great idea to come over to my place and ask me to dye your hair for you. I had never done anything of the sort before, but you came over with some purple hair dye and we watched The Thing while I sat behind you spending the whole time trying to work the dye all throughout your hair. I felt like no matter how much I kept at it, I was still missing spots. And anyway, now I still have a towel with some purple stains on it to make sure that memory is always around. There's another kind of pivotal chapter where Senpai once again sees Nagatoro hanging out with her friends, plus some obnoxious dudes who are making her uncomfortable. And in an act that takes incredible bravery for introverts like us, he approaches their table and asks her if she wants to get out of there. The way he rescued her from this situation reminds me of the time you called me up to come rescue you. I forget what the occasion was, but you called me up and said you were at a restaurant with your family and having just the worst time, and asked if I could drive out there and rescue you. So I did, of course. I drove up outside the place, you came running out to my car, and we took off and hung out together for the rest of the night. The first night we decided to go back to my place for drinks. You wanted me to give you a piggyback ride, which I had never done before. I think ours was a little funnier than what happens in Nagatoro, where they both just get all flustered because his hands slide closer to her butt when she starts to slip down. I remember you hopped on my back, and immediately I lost my balance and we both fell on the ground. You started laughing even harder when I offered a hand to help you up while I was still on the ground myself. On the second try, I kept it together and ran as fast as I could to the car. Sometimes the series gets a little silly, like when Nagatoro gets this costume made that resembles a cat girl from a fighting game they played together. You never did anything so silly as putting on a character costume and posing for me, but there was that one time I took a photo of you by my PC because you looked like my desktop wallpaper of Mamimi. I could never show anyone that photo, though, because you were in your underwear. In the 7th volume, the two of them go to the zoo, and Nagatoro thinks at first that it's basically just a date, but actually Senpai wants to sketch animals there, and he invites her to do the same. She is not into it at first, but comes around over time, and later on, she even sees him defending her inferior artwork to a pair of strangers. This was like one of the last times we hung out together. Probably second to last. We went into a dollar store and bought some paints and canvases, then we went back to my place, turned on a Bob Ross painting show on Netflix, and did our best to follow along with him. In the end, we both thought the other had made a better painting. It might have been fun to exchange paintings at the end, but maybe that's more the kind of gift exchange you do with someone you're actually dating. I still have my painting. Do you? In Volume 9, there's a part where Senpai is delirious with a fever, and just like every rom-com manga ever, his crush came over to his house to help nurse him back to health. In his delirium, he starts dreaming about and imagining that he and Nagatoro are married, and that this is exactly how she would behave when they're living together. Do you remember how we used to talk about moving in together? Not as a matter of if it's going to happen, but a matter of when it's going to happen. Even when we had only been friends for a short time, you would say things like, "I bet you'll be a really good roommate," and "I bet you'll be a lot of fun to drink with." And, well, I guess we put one of those to the test. One day you were talking about the ways our personalities change when we're drinking, and what you said about me was, "You're a cuddle monster." That's probably my favorite way anyone has ever described me. There was one other occasion you probably don't remember. The first time you invited me to your place to drink and watch movies, we were on the couch and either we were snuggled up close or I was sitting there with your thighs across my lap and you said, "Are we married right now? We should just be married." At the time, my low self-esteem caused me to brush that comment aside and assume it didn't mean anything. Just the nonsense ramblings of my drunk best friend. That night was also the first time you kissed me on the cheek. A couple of times. Just like Senpai, I decided one day to start wearing contacts. I heard somebody say once, if a girl suddenly dyes her hair one day, that means she is going through some serious shit. Stay out of her way. Well, deciding to get contacts and start wearing my hair short was my version of that, I guess. This was at a time when I thought we were never going to speak to each other again, and yes, you were a major factor in me making that decision. You told me later on that you removed me as a Facebook friend when you saw me post a selfie of my new look because all along you had wanted me to try cutting my hair and wearing contacts. I guess you know the rest of the story from here. Unlike me, Senpai finally admits to himself around volume 15 that he wants Nagatoro to keep being a major part of his life. Unlike me, he admits that he loves Nagatoro. Unlike me, he tells Nagatoro he wants her to be his girlfriend. And unlike us, they stay in each other's lives. I have about 700 pages of unsent letters now, and the majority of those are either addressed to you or about you. You expressed interest in maybe reading one or two of those sometime, and that's still an open offer if I ever hear from you again. I tried to reach out to you one more time this past December, and you didn't respond, so maybe you finally want to cut me loose for good. Now I'm turning here instead. The first few months after you moved away, I resolved that I would try to call you and catch up once I actually had a girlfriend, because that would stand as proof that I was over you. Well, it took more than a few months. More than a few years. In fact, since you left, nobody has been 10% as interested in me as you were. Maybe one day that'll change. I honestly would probably never make this video if I thought you were still watching. My recent videos get less than 100 views on average, so much like those hundreds of letters I'll never send, this video is another way I'm crying out into the void. A lot of people look at Nagatoro and wonder, what kind of weirdo could possibly enjoy this? Well, it's me. I am precisely that weirdo. If you like it too, then I hope you're exactly like me. But for your sake, I hope you are nothing like me. Nagatoro is the love now sorely absent from my life. The longer the story goes on, the more it diverges from my reality. It started as my favorite thing in the world, but when I decide to read the end, it might just kill me. The first girl I ever confessed a crush to responded with, "Thank you for being honest." I hope you appreciate my honesty even more than she did. As I'm finishing up this video, the English release of the manga's final volume is imminent. Even though it ended over a year ago in Japan, I haven't read ahead. Instead, I've patiently awaited every hard copy English release, and when they do arrive, I uncontrollably devour every page as soon as I see it. As I was reading the penultimate volume, number 19, I was overcome by emotion once again. We come to the climactic love confession scene, which visually and thematically echoes the very first appearance of Nagatoro, before it was a printed manga. Senpai comes to this realization that, just like he spent so many months trying to figure out what was going through her head while they spent time together, she was doing exactly the same. I then realized that the same thing happened in my life, and I came to a hopeful revelation. Nagatoro, the manga, is my picture of Dorian Gray. What I mean is, in the story, The Picture of Dorian Gray, this portrait that the titular character has commissioned is imbued with a supernatural power, where every misdeed and horror in its subject's life reflects not on himself, but instead on the inanimate painting. By the end of the story, he gazes upon the painting once again, and all the horrors of his past deeds catch up to him, overwhelm him, and destroy him. So maybe this manga is the inverse for me. Maybe all the joy, love, and happiness my life has been missing for the better part of a decade have actually been manifesting into this manga. Maybe when I read the final volume in a few days, everything in my life is going to take a tremendous turn for the better. Maybe the curse will be broken and everything will be okay. Because as of this moment, I still don't know exactly how it ends. But I can't wait to find out.
I don't know, like really, really sweet and understanding. You have to be like as affectionate as you are, because you're really, like, I feel like you would need somebody that's really affectionate.